"Excuse me, but this seat isn't for people like you." That's what the flight attendant told the boy, a black child, barely 11, as she motioned for him to get up. He had a valid boarding pass. He'd said, "Yes, ma'am." He'd even smiled. But still, she made him move. People watched. Some whispered. A few started filming, and 15 minutes later, the man arrived. Not loud, not angry, just calm. And in control. He didn't shout. He didn't argue. He simply showed a folder and changed everything. Who was he? Why did the airline freeze when they saw his name? And what clause did he invoke that rewrote policy, shut down operations, and forced an entire boardroom to its knees? Wherever you're listening from, Atlanta, Chicago, Lagos, or London, leave a comment below. Have you ever seen someone mistaken for less than because of how they look? Don't forget to subscribe. This story needs to be heard all the way through. Now, let me tell you what happened next. The flight attendant didn't whisper. She didn't check her facts. She didn't even pause. Instead, she pointed at the boy in seat 2A, the only black child in the first-class cabin, and said loud enough for row 4 to hear, "Sir, you'll need to move. This section is reserved for first-class passengers." Heads turned. A businessman glanced over his laptop. A woman 2 rows back blinked, lowered her magazine. The boy, no older than 12, looked up from his tablet. His feet dangled an inch above the plush carpet. He wore a navy blazer 2 sizes too big, a checkered bow tie slightly crooked, and polished shoes that hadn't seen a single scuff. He blinked once. "I am in first class," he said. His voice was soft, gentle, like someone who wasn't quite sure if he was allowed to speak up. The flight attendant's eyes narrowed. "And where are your parents?" The boy glanced around. "My father's meeting me in Chicago." "Uh-huh." She pulled her lips into a tight smile. "Can I see your boarding pass?" He reached into his blazer pocket carefully, like he'd practiced, and handed her the neatly folded pass. He snatched it and studied it. "Did someone give this to you?" she asked. He frowned. "I printed it myself." Behind them, a man's phone came up silently, lens pointed forward. Somewhere behind that, someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" A woman across the aisle leaned toward the window, pretending not to hear. The attendant held the pass to the light like it might fade, then turned toward the front of the plane. "Excuse me, I need to verify this." She disappeared into the galley. The boy sat perfectly still, his hands folded in his lap, his legs swinging gently, softly brushing the air. Another attendant arrived moments later, older, silver hair, a clipboard in hand. She didn't speak to the boy at first. Instead, she glanced at the pass the first attendant had handed her. Then, eyes narrowing, she stepped forward and crouched beside his seat. "Honey," she said in the voice adults use when they think a child is lost, "can you tell me your full name?" He said it clearly. Elijah D. Collins III. Her mouth twitched. "And you printed this ticket yourself?" "I booked it with my dad," Elijah said. "Maybe I'm supposed to be dead," Ham said, to dress nice and be on time. A businessman chuckled under his breath. "Should have told him to sit in coach," he muttered. The first flight attendant returned, face set like stone. "Sir, I'm sorry, but this boarding pass is not valid." Elijah blinked again. "But I went through security." "That was a mistake," she said. "Please gather your belongings and follow me to the rear cabin." He looked around. "Is there a reason I can't sit where I'm assigned?" Now her voice was sharp. "You are delaying boarding for other passengers. Please comply." A young woman in 3D wearing headphones around her neck pulled out her phone. He hit record. Someone whispered, "Wait, the kid hasn't done anything wrong." But no one stood up. Not yet. Elijah slid off the seat, slowly. He picked up his small leather backpack, initials ED, stitched in gold. He looked at the window, as if memorizing the view. then turned. "Can I call my dad first?" "No," the attendant snapped. "Phone's off." "He's probably already in the air," I said. "Follow me now." A voice called from the front of the plane. "Delay on the jet bridge. We'll be pushing back in 10 minutes. Passengers began murmuring. Elijah stepped into the aisle, head held high. He didn't cry. He didn't yell. But there was something in the way he moved, quiet, deliberate, that made the woman in 3D whisper, "He's done this before." The attendant led him past rows of adults who wouldn't meet his eyes. One man did, a white man in a tailored suit. He frowned, just barely, then looked away. As Elijah reached the curtain separating first class from economy, his phone buzzed in his pocket. He stopped walking. "Is there a problem?" the attendant snapped. Elijah pulled out the phone, looked at the screen, then lifted his eyes slowly. "My dad just landed," he said, his voice calm, not a threat, just a fact. "You can text him from your seat in coach," she said, but Elijah didn't move. Back near 3D, the girl with the headphones had started live streaming. A few comments rolled in fast. "Wait, why are they kicking out a kid? This is wild. Someone call the dad." The pilot emerged from the cockpit, annoyed. "What's the issue here?" "Unauthorized child in first class," the attendant said, "trying to use a fake boarding pass." Elijah didn't flinch. "It's not fake." The pilot turned to him. "Son, we'll handle this calmly. You'll be fine in economy. No shame in that." A voice came over the intercom just then. "Gate 12. Passenger escort approaching jet bridge. Security code, white level 2. The gate agent looked confused. Then her headset beeped again. She glanced up at the jetway and froze. A man in a charcoal gray suit was walking toward the aircraft, escorted by 2 airline staff. Tall, broad shoulders, close-cropped beard, dark skin, calm eyes, a briefcase in one hand. The whole terminal seemed to pause around him. The girl in 3D whispered into her live stream, "Yo, that's the kid's dad. And he looks like he owns this place." The man stepped onto the plane, glanced at his son, then turned to the crew. "Who removed my son from his seat?" Nobody answered. His voice was velvet and iron. "I asked a question." Silence. He walked to Elijah and placed a hand on his shoulder, then pulled out his phone and pressed one number. "Hi, it's me. I'm on board. Yes, gate 12, full protocol. Get PR on standby, and legal." He turned back to the pilot. "Captain, I suggest you delay takeoff. You're about to have a problem." The captain cleared his throat. "Sir, may I ask who you are?" The man extended a business card. The pilot read it once, then again, his face drained of color. "Elijah D. Collins, Sr., Chief Executive Officer, Horizon Global Holdings." 15 minutes ago, Collins said quietly, "you kicked out a black child from first class without verifying anything." 15 minutes later, his father arrived. He looked around the cabin. "Everything's about to change." No one breathed. No one blinked. The name on the business card had started a ripple. Soft at first, a flutter in the captain's eyes, a sudden silence from the flight attendant. Then it spread. 3 rows back, the woman with the headphones gestured, watched the whole thing through her phone screen. Her live stream comments had doubled in less than a minute. "Who is this man? CEO? Wait, of what? Horizon Global Holdings? Is that tech? No, they own everything. Logistics, telecom? Airlines too, maybe?" She didn't answer, she just kept filming. Mr. Collins hadn't raised his voice once, and yet every voice around him had dropped. The captain handed back the business card like it burned. "Mr. Collins, we didn't know." "I know," Elijah's father replied. "That's the problem." He turned to his son. "Are you all right?" Elijah nodded, but his voice barely came. "She said I couldn't sit in first class. She took my boarding pass." Collins extended one hand. "Open, steady." "Give it back," The lead attendant hesitated. "Sir, I have to log it for verification." His stare cut through the air. She reached into her uniform and handed it over without another word. The cabin watched, as if holding a collective breath. Collins didn't look angry. He looked disappointed and tired, like this wasn't the first time, like it wouldn't be the last. Someone near the front whispered, "What company did he say he ran?" The pilot was now off to the side, tapping his headset, whispering rapid fire into dispatch. His jaw was locked. His eyes kept darting to the gate. A nearby passenger, a middle-aged man in a gray sweater, leaned toward Jasmine. "Did he say Horizon Global?" She nodded. "You know them?" "My company tried to pitch them last year. They control half the tech infrastructure from Dallas to D.C. He sat back slowly. From the galley, one of the junior attendants texted quietly under the counter. "Dude, passenger in 2A, his dad is insane rich. CEO of Horizon Holdings. The pilot's face is white, aren't?" Across the aisle, a woman took a picture discreetly. The man next to her whispered, "That's the kid they pulled out earlier, right? Jesus." The whispers continued. A businessman pulled up his phone and searched quickly. Forbes' top 100 black CEOs in America, $6.6 million, Elijah D. Collins Sr. A link popped up. $16 billion 0 cents in managed assets. Oversight over defense contracts, aviation, media. Based in Atlanta. The man dropped his phone into his lap. Collins didn't move. He simply walked back to Elijah's original seat, 2A, and stood there. The pilot cleared his throat. "Sir, boarding is still underway. We can move you and your son back to first class." "We don't need your permission," Collins said. He nodded at his son. "Go on, Elijah, back to your seat." The boy climbed in quietly, placed his backpack back beneath the seat like before, like it never happened, like it hadn't already been streamed to over 2,000 people watching in real time. "Sir," the lead flight attendant began, her voice small now, "I want to apologize." "You will," Collins said calmly, "just not to me." He stepped back into the aisle and checked his phone. A message was already waiting. "Legal is on standby, confirming identity of crew involved. Stock alert triggered. HGL monitoring media spike." He typed one word, "proceed." Jasmine's chat feed started exploding. He just texted someone and said proceed. This man is giving CEO assassin vibes. This is the realest thing I've seen all year. Collins looked toward the gate. The jet bridge door had opened again. A woman in a charcoal pantsuit with a sleek tablet and an earpiece stepped on board. She scanned quickly, spotted him, and nodded. "Mr. Collins, we're in position. Would you like to debrief here or relocate?" "Inside," he said. "Very good." The gate agent flinched as the woman passed. "Sorry, who exactly?" "Board Relations, Horizon Global. We're authorized." She turned back to Collins. "Jet bridge has been cleared. Press is outside." He nodded once, then turned back to the captain. "You'll hold this plane." The captain hesitated. "Mr. Collins, this plane does not leave until I finish speaking with your regional director. But we'll miss our takeoff window." Collins turned slowly. "You already missed something more important." No one argued. Back in seat 3A, Jasmine was still streaming. Her voice shook now. "I don't know what's happening," she whispered. "But y'all, something's about to go down." The door to the jet bridge hissed shut behind them. Mr. Collins walked without a word, his steps silent on the carpeted hallway. Behind him, the woman in the charcoal suit followed closely, holding her tablet like a badge. Inside the terminal lounge, 2 supervisors were waiting. One wore a badge that read, Regional Operations, Atlantic Air. The other, younger, wore a vest with Security Liaison stitched in navy. Neither spoke. Collins stopped in front of them. No greetings, no pleasantries. He simply said, "How long have you worked for this airline?" The older man straightened. 13 years. And how long does it take for your crews to verify a passenger's ticket? Sir, That wasn't a rhetorical question, the supervisor swallowed. About 30 seconds, Collins nodded. It took them 23 minutes to believe my son. He turned to the woman beside him. Give me the list. She tapped her tablet. A document appeared, transferred instantly to his phone. He scanned it once. Captain Jacob Martin, lead attendant Fiona Clark, second attendant. He stopped, then tapped the screen, held the phone to his ear. 3 rings, then a voice picked up. Crisp, alert. Collins, activate protocol Omega 7. A pause, then, is this a full chain escalation? Yes, Collins said. This is a reputational threat. Live media present. Target system Atlantic Air. Trigger compliance within 15 minutes. The voice didn't ask why, didn't hesitate, just understood. Call ended. Collins slid the phone into his coat. The supervisor blinked. I'm sorry, did you just say? You'll be receiving a directive shortly. It won't come from me, but it will come fast. Beep! The younger security liaison looked at his device. Sir, your name just came up on our Tier 1 access board. Another beep, this time from the supervisor's phone. He opened the notification, stopped breathing. Collins didn't look at him. He turned to the glass wall where the plane was still parked at the gate. Through it, he could see his son. Elijah had returned to seat 2A, still quiet, still watching. Collins murmured, almost to himself, this was never about a seat. The woman with the tablet spoke softly. Sir, do you want PR to prepare a response? He shook his head. No, let them watch, let them record. Legal? They're already watching. Another notification hit the supervisor's screen. His hands were shaking now. Mr. Collins, I didn't realize you were on the acquisitions board. I'm not. The supervisor exhaled in relief, then froze when Collins added, I chair it. Silence. The woman with the tablet gave a subtle nod. Sir, social media is spiking. The incident's already trending. Let it burn, he said. Then he turned back toward the gate. Now, Collins said, I'm ready to reboard. The 2 men moved to follow. He stopped them with a glance. No, he said. You stay. They obeyed without question. Collins walked back toward the aircraft alone, like a general returning to the field. The cabin had gone still. When Mr. Collins stepped back on board, it wasn't like before. This time no one spoke. Not the attendants, not the passengers, even the hum of the air system felt quieter, like the plane itself knew something had shifted. He walked past the first row, past the curtain, past the eyes that dared not meet his. He didn't speak. He didn't have to. Elijah looked up from his seat in 2A. His father nodded once. That was enough. Behind him, Fiona, the lead flight attendant, stood frozen beside the galley, her hands clenched behind her back. She opened her mouth, then closed it. He didn't look at her. Instead, Collins walked to the front of the cabin and stopped. The captain stood there, stiff, pale. I've received word from your board liaison, Captain Martin said. They confirmed your executive standing. I've also been advised to cooperate with any directive. Collins nodded once. The silence was surgical. From row 3, Jasmine was still streaming, but now her voice had changed, not excitement, awe. He's not threatening anyone, she whispered to her chat. He's just standing there, and they're all falling in line. A new flight attendant arrived, younger, confused. She whispered something to Fiona, then paused. Her eyes met Collins's for just a second and dropped instantly. Fiona turned and walked toward the cockpit. Her hands shook. In the terminal, a flurry of messages lit up phones. All staff, Gate 12, do not engage passenger Elijah Collins or accompanying guardian. Status, Tier 1, clearance. Hold departures system-wide for 15 minutes. PR and legal on call. Back in the cabin, Collins pulled a small device from his inner coat pocket, a thin glass tablet with no branding. He tapped twice. The screen lit up with a secure interface. He selected a file titled Atlantic Holdings Internal Conduct Report, Flagged Routes. He scrolled. Flight 918, Miami to Newark. Flight 21076, Dallas to Phoenix. Flight 441, Atlanta to Chicago. He tapped 441. The page opened. A list of discrimination incident reports appeared. Some public, some sealed. Last 6 months. 5 complaints. All dismissed. He didn't frown, he didn't shake his head, he just tapped escalate. Another ping hit the regional operations office. Meanwhile, Elijah sat still. Back straight, hands folded. Mr. Collins turned to his son. "You okay?" Elijah nodded. "They didn't like that I was by myself. They're not trained to see you." Elijah paused. "Will they be mad?" Collins didn't answer right away. "They'll be accountable," he said, then loud enough for the first 3 rows to hear, "but accountability is not the same as revenge." The man in 1D shifted uncomfortably. The woman beside him lowered her phone, finally done filming. Collins took his seat. Not beside Elijah, but across the aisle, still visible, still present. The plane hadn't moved, neither had the people. Because the system? It was moving now. Fiona Clark locked the galley door behind her. She didn't know why she was shaking. Maybe it was the silence from the cockpit. Maybe it was the way the captain had gone stiff after one message, just one, then stopped responding altogether. The younger attendant approached. "Fiona," she whispered, "who is that man?" I don't know," Fiona said, but that wasn't true. She did know, not the name, not the title, but the weight, the stillness. The kind that walks into a room and makes people stop lying. In the terminal, phones buzzed. A junior gate agent opened a notification, froze. Collins escalation flagged. Legal watching, press watching. Do not comment. Do not intervene. He turned to his supervisor. "Should we hold the flight?" The supervisor didn't answer. He was already on his 3rd call to someone higher up, someone who wasn't answering anymore. Inside the plane, Jasmine's live stream passed 3,000 viewers. The comments moved too fast to read now. "This ain't just drama, this is something else. Why are the crew so quiet now?" He tapped that screen like he was launching a satellite. Jasmine kept filming, but she was no longer smiling. There was something heavy in the air now, something quiet and dangerous, like thunder that hadn't cracked yet. Captain Martin sat in the cockpit. He hadn't touched the controls in 5 minutes. His hands hovered, unsure. On the main screen, a priority memo had arrived. No subject, no title, just one line. "Flight 441 has been placed under Tier 1 watch. Do not proceed without compliance audit." He'd flown for 17 years, handled typhoons, fuel drops, emergency landings, but nothing like this. He looked at his co-pilot. Neither spoke. At the front of the plane, a corporate liaison entered. Slim, black blazer, ID badge clipped but turned inward. He walked down the aisle, slow, even steps, then knelt beside Mr. Collins. "Sir, the audit stream is live. Command is observing." Collins nodded. "Hold position," he said, "until we conclude." "Yes, sir." The man stood, turned, and exited. No words to the crew, just a presence. In row 1, a woman finally whispered, I think they're watching from corporate, like from the top." Her husband frowned. "You mean like management?" "No," she said. "I mean the real top." A few rows back, Elijah tapped his tablet. He opened a file titled Flight 441. It had checklists, timestamps, a seat map. He scrolled calmly, then looked out the window. In the gate office, someone shouted, "Who led a Horizon Holdings executive board without flagging security?" No answer, because there was no one left to blame. Just echoes. Just fear. Inside the cabin, Fiona re-emerged. She didn't speak. She walked to Mr. Collins' row, placed a glass of water on the tray table, and stood there. Waiting, Collins looked up. She opened her mouth, closed it again, then said very softly, "I'm sorry." He didn't reply, not yet. Instead, he looked down at his screen. Another alert had appeared. Board packet ready. Atlantic Holdings, internal bias audit, 6 flagged incidents, unresolved. Flight 441 equals trigger case. He tapped once, confirmed, then finally looked up at Fiona and said, "This isn't about what you did." She blinked. "It's about what you represent and what comes next." She stood still, unsure what to do with that. Behind her, the cockpit door creaked open again. Captain Martin stood just outside the cockpit door, shoulders square, eyes forward, but his hand trembled slightly as it gripped the frame. Collins didn't look up. Not yet. He was reading. The screen in front of him glowed faintly, a document labeled "Internal Equity Failure, Trigger Threshold Reached." One line was bolded in red, "Escalation Protocol 7, Authority Override Pending." He tapped it once. A timer began. 4 minutes. In the galley, Fiona stared into the ice drawer, not seeing anything. Her earpiece clicked. She didn't answer. Then a voice whispered into her line, "We've been flagged. Full audit. Legals watching live. Do not speak to press. Do not act without clearance." She turned it off. Outside, at gate 12, the terminal looked frozen in time. 3 passengers stood silently at the window, watching the plane. None were talking anymore, just watching. Waiting. One of them pulled out their phone, typed one line, "It's too quiet. Something's coming." In the airline's downtown headquarters, 2 executives stood over a screen showing a paused live stream of the flight cabin. Jasmine's stream. "She's still recording," one said. "Don't stop it," the other whispered. "Let them see what comes next." Back in the cabin, Elijah adjusted his tie. The knot was too tight now. He loosened it slightly, like his father showed him once, in the mirror at home when preparing for his first press conference. Mr. Collins glanced at his watch, then tapped a new screen. The camera in his seat's control panel activated, discreet, embedded in the headrest in front of him. He spoke, not loudly, but with clarity. "Begin record." Then he rose, stood in the aisle, straightened his cuffs, closed the tablet case. Passengers followed his movement like tracking a storm cloud. The pilot stepped back. "Sir?" he began. Collins turned his head. "Captain Martin, 17 years, no major violations, commended for safety and professionalism." Martin froze. "How?" "Everything that happens on this flight," Collins said, "will become precedent. For policy, for training, for legal." A pause. "And for history." Jasmine whispered into her mic, "Oh my God. He's about to do something. Y'all feel that? Like..." She didn't finish. Mr. Collins stepped into the front of the cabin. Rows of passengers behind him, silence pressing in from every direction. He looked once at Fiona, then at the camera embedded above the galley, the security feed. Then he said, clearly and calmly, "Ladies and gentlemen, before we take off, there's something you need to understand." He reached into his coat, pulled out a sealed folder, thick, stamped, official. He held it in one hand. "This plane, this airline, this entire route is no longer operating under your usual command." And then, with the ease of someone who had waited long enough, he opened the folder and said, "As of this moment, I'm invoking Ownership Clause 14B. The folder unfolded with surgical precision, not rushed, not for show, just inevitable. Mr. Collins laid 3 pages flat on the folding tray at the front of the cabin. Passengers leaned forward, straining to see. Even those who hadn't said a word in 40 minutes were suddenly alert. Jasmine had stopped commenting entirely. She just held her phone steady, her stream climbing past 8,000 viewers. Collins tapped once on the headrest screen in front of him. The camera feed from the galley lit up, now broadcasting his voice cabin-wide. "Clause 14B," he said, "in Atlantic Holdings Corporate Charter, permits direct shareholder intervention when reputation or equity stability is at risk due to staff action." He looked directly at Fiona, at Captain Martin, then to the camera above. "As of this quarter, Horizon Global Holdings holds 19.4% of Atlantic Air's Class A voting shares." Gasps. Two passengers flinched audibly. A man in 4D murmured, "He's a primary stakeholder?" Collins nodded once. "As of last month, an additional 4.3% was acquired via our logistics subsidiary, bringing total effective control to 23.7%. He tapped again. A corporate screen lit up behind him, a projection linked to his device. The Atlantic Air board structure, his name highlighted under active voting representative. Effective immediately, I am enacting temporary governance oversight as outlined in the acquisition protocol signed February 3rd of this year. Captain Martin stepped forward. "Sir, You didn't read your own airline's policy," Collins said, still calm, still level. "But that's not your failure alone." He looked at Fiona, then at the secondary attendant, whose lips trembled now. "You were trained to recognize threats, not dignity. That's what this is about." He turned back to the passengers. "Earlier today, my son was removed from his assigned seat based on appearance. He showed his boarding pass, his ID, and followed every rule." A pause. "He was 11 years old." The air tightened. "He was treated like a trespasser, not because of behavior but because of assumption." Jasmine's live stream exploded. "That boy is 11? She kicked out a child? My heart just broke." Collins laid a final page on the tray. A document signed and sealed. Horizon Global, Ethics Intervention Fund. Annual allocation $10 million, 0 cents. Purpose: to fund response teams for real-time discrimination incidents affecting minor dependents of Horizon executives. "This isn't new," Collins said. "We built a system for this because we knew it would happen." Fiona covered her mouth. Her knees softened. She grabbed the back of a seat. The captain stepped back into the cockpit. "Not to take off, to hide." In the airline's New York office, the boardroom projector displayed Collins live on Flight 4411. Half the board sat frozen. The general counsel whispered, "He activated Clause 14B, live. We didn't even see it coming." Another board member shook his head. "He wrote Clause 14B. Back on the plane, Collins gently closed the folder. One motion. Quiet. Final. Then looked directly into the security camera. "This is no longer about Seat 2A, he stood. "This is now about the systems that decide who deserves to sit there." Mr. Collins remained standing. His voice never rose. He didn't pace, didn't shout, didn't look around for applause, but his words sliced the silence. "Effective immediately, flight operations on 441 are under internal review." A ping echoed from the cockpit. Captain Martin looked at his monitor. A red banner flashed. "Governance override, do not depart. Executive liaison en route." His hand fell from the throttle. Fiona took a step back. The air in her lungs had changed. She reached for the galley wall. Not to steady herself, to disappear behind it. But she couldn't. Collins was still speaking. "Cabin crew rotation is suspended. Lead attendant Fiona Clark and secondary attendant Jackson Cole will step away from active duty pending review." A soft murmur rippled through first class. Jasmine's voice returned to her stream, this time hushed, uneasy. "They're getting removed, like officially, right now." A third attendant, not previously involved, appeared from the rear cabin. She paused, then slowly walked forward. Didn't speak, just took Fiona's service tablet, checked the crew panel, and keyed in 2 codes. FC1, offline. FA2, reassigned. Fiona's name vanished from the manifest. Back at headquarters, a floor below the legal team, HR systems logged the event. Live personnel deactivation. Incident tag Collins_441_Act 1. The timestamp was marked Immediate Action CEO Level. On board, Collins turned slightly. He looked down the aisle, then tapped once more on his device. The cabin lights dimmed. Seatbelt signs blinked, not in caution, but in sync with a new cabin message. Notice, this flight is currently operating under direct executive governance. For questions, contact board liaison. Several passengers gasped. A woman in 3C whispered to her husband, "Have you ever seen that message before?" He shook his head slowly. "That doesn't even exist in the manual." Collins sat, no rush. He adjusted his cuffs, opened a new screen. Flight Culture Recalibration, Phase 1, Visibility. He tapped Activate. In 4 Atlantic Air training centers across the country, a red alert pushed to every manager. Priority update. All recorded incidents involving racial or age-based seating disputes to be reopened and reviewed within 72 hours. A junior admin in Atlanta dropped her coffee. In Los Angeles, a training coordinator stared at her screen and whispered, "We're being flipped inside out." On board, Collins turned to his son. "Elijah," he said quietly, "you okay?" The boy nodded. "What happens next?" Collins looked ahead, then said simply, "We reset the system." He tapped his tablet one final time. A chime rang out through the cabin. This wasn't the normal ding. This was a code only a few crew had ever heard, and none had ever triggered. Code Delta Echo, Policy Escalation, Executive Level. On the flight's overhead monitor, a new screen appeared. Diversity Accountability Protocol, activated. Passengers stared. No one knew what it meant yet, but everyone felt it. This wasn't just a disruption, this was a reckoning. 3 hours later, New York, headquarters of Atlantic Holdings, the conference room wasn't ready, not for him, not for this. But they tried. A tech associate scrambled to set up the video wall. Legal counsel rushed in, clutching binders. One board member was still on Zoom, calling in from Dubai. But Collins? He was already seated. On screen, calm, centered, direct. At his side, Elijah, silent but present. The chairwoman cleared her throat. "We understand your actions on Flight 441 caused quite a stir." Collins didn't blink. "What you call a stir, I call the cost of delay." Legal counsel leaned forward. "Mr. Collins, you invoked Clause 14B without prior notice." "I wrote Clause 14B, he said. "I don't need notice." Silence. He stood, not out of anger, but necessity. He tapped a file open, projected onto the wall behind him, Internal Equity Failures, Atlantic Air. Q1 report. Unverified seating complaints, 87. Dismissed passenger grievances, 63. Incidents involving minors, 9%. Of complainants identifying as Black or Latino, 78%. He let the numbers breathe. "Gentlemen," Collins said, "this isn't a PR problem. This is a systemic negligence issue, and as one of your largest stakeholders, I refuse to subsidize bigotry." The chairwoman tried again. "We're willing to issue a formal apology." Collins waved it away. "Empty apologies are the currency of cowards. I'm here for architecture, not optics." He opened another tab. Reform proposals. Enforceable within 7 days. Full external audit of passenger complaints, starting with Flight 441. Immediate deactivation of crew involved in discriminatory protocol errors. Reinstate passengers previously removed without verified cause. Mandatory anti-bias certification for all frontline staff within 30 days. Creation of an anonymous reporting app for passengers and crew. One board member exhaled. "That's ambitious." Collins looked at her. Ambition built your airline, you think it can't save it? Another document appeared, Financial Risk Projections in Action Scenario. Forecasted social media fallout, 11 million impressions. Brand trust deterioration, 37% projected in black consumer segment. Legal exposure, class action probability, 62%. Stock drop, estimated 9-12% within 14 days. General counsel turned pale. You pulled these numbers in under 4 hours? I funded the models 5 years ago, Collins said, prepared for a moment like this. The chairwoman looked around the room. One by one, heads nodded. No dissent, just reality, just a reckoning. Collins sat again, tired now, but still firm. This began with my son being told he didn't belong. We're going to make sure that phrase dies in this industry. A board member raised their hand. What happens if we agree to everything? You begin to rebuild. And if we don't? Collins didn't smile, didn't threaten, just said, plainly, then I sell. And the next time I board one of your planes, it'll be to inspect a company I once owned. 72 hours after Flight 441 was grounded in silence, the world answered with noise. CNN broke the story first. Atlantic Holdings overhauled mid-flight by black executive and father. Full policy reset in motion. Fox ran a different headline. Corporate coup at 30,000 feet. But by afternoon, the tone shifted. NPR featured a roundtable. When a father becomes the CEO of change. BET aired a full segment titled simply, "To A," hashtag spread like wildfire. Elijah was seated. Governance, not revenge. Flight 441 protocol. Within 48 hours, over 3.2 million people had interacted with the story. Other airlines scrambled to respond. Delta announced a third-party bias audit. United promised anonymous passenger incident tracking by Q3. Even JetBlue restructured its escalation chain. But none were fast enough. Because the public had moved faster. A petition launched by a high school teacher in Detroit. Every airline should adopt Collins protocols, bias training, real consequences, and transparent reporting. It passed 100,000 signatures in 2 days. In a video posted from Oakland, a young woman shared, "I've worked gate crew for 5 years. Every black boy under 18 gets treated like he's out of place in first class." Collins didn't just speak up. He rewired the circuit. The impact spread beyond airlines. Amtrak launched a dignity task force. Greyhound reviewed its complaint system for bias filters. The Department of Transportation scheduled a live hearing. The committee's title? Mobility and Belonging in Public Transportation. Inside classrooms, Collins's name showed up on syllabi. Sociology professors discussed real-time power interventions. Business schools assigned Ownership Clause 14b as case study. One university even renamed a policy course, Executive Ethics, from Seat 2A to System Reform. But the most powerful ripples weren't headlines, they were letters. Dozens, then hundreds. Collins read them each night, one by one. A letter from a flight attendant in Arizona. "I watched the video 5 times. I'm one of those people who might have stood silent, but not anymore. I'm asking for bias training in my union. I'm done watching." A letter from a mother in Kansas City. "My son is 10. He looks just like Elijah. Now I know what to do if anyone ever tells him, 'You don't belong.' Thank you for showing me what it looks like to stand your ground, with grace." And one from a teenage boy in Philadelphia. "Dear Mr. Collins, I've never flown first class, but now I want to, just to prove I can." Elijah Washington, age 13. Collins kept that letter, taped it to the side of his briefcase so that every meeting, every flight, every negotiation from here on carried a boy's name with it. 6 weeks later, Flight 441 had long landed. The news cycle had moved on, new stories, new scandals. But in one corner of the world, something quiet was still unfolding. Elijah stood at the gate again. Same airport, same terminal, different airline. This time, he wasn't alone. His father stood beside him, holding a plain leather bag. The same one with the taped letter inside. The gate agent smiled. "Good morning, Mr. Collins. We've upgraded you both to premier cabin, no extra charge." Collins nodded. "We'll keep our original seats, thank you." Elijah raised an eyebrow. "Why not take it?" "Because we earned where we're going," Collins said. "Not what they're trying to fix." They boarded quietly. No stares, no questions. Just space. From his window, Elijah watched the tarmac workers move like small pieces in a careful dance, then turned to his dad. "Did we change anything?" Collins looked out too, not at the plane, not at the sky, at the people walking down the terminal. A black woman in a Navy uniform held her boarding pass high, smiling as she guided a child toward the front. A white teenager in a wheelchair was escorted directly into first class, not questioned once. A man in a turban nodded at the gate agent, who nodded back with ease. Collins turned back to Elijah. "We didn't change everything," he said, "but we cracked the glass." Elijah leaned back in his seat. "What happens next?" His father exhaled. "We build through the crack." A soft chime rang out. The flight attendant came down the aisle, placed a water bottle on Elijah's tray. No hesitation, no side eyes, no questions, just care. Collins opened his briefcase. His hand brushed the taped letter. Still there, he didn't read it. He didn't need to. The plane pulled away from the gate. No one filmed, no one shouted. Just a journey. Finally, one that began without proving you deserved to be on it. Some seats change the world, not because of who sat in them, but because of what happened when someone refused to leave. Thank you for staying with us through this story. To me, this wasn't just about one boy being removed from a seat. It was about every unspoken rule we've learned to accept. Who gets seen? Who gets doubted? Who gets to belong? Mr. Collins didn't scream, didn't swing, He used knowledge, preparation, and calm power. And what moved me most was that he did it not for revenge, but for legacy. Stories like this remind us real change doesn't always wear a cape. Sometimes it wears a suit, speaks softly, and refuses to walk away. If this story made you feel something, anger, pride, maybe even hope, leave a comment, share it with someone who needs it, and please subscribe, because we have more stories like this, and they matter.